Hello, I'm Cheryl Jacobs, and welcome to our podcast, Kids Party Characters, and thank you for listening. So please go on and subscribe to our show. Today we have on our show Adil Amarsi, who's a copywriter extraordinaire, consultant, a man who speaks copy out of the air. He's also the host of Adil Amarsi Unplugged Podcast. He's a British gent and someone I know you're going to love. Hello, Adil.
Hey, Cheryl. Thanks for having me on.
So I have to thank you. We met in London and we spoke about the podcast. So you are the person behind who actually really sparked the interest of me starting my own podcast.
I'm glad that could help there. I know how powerful it is and how people are going to be impacted and listen to the show.
So, my question is, what got you into copywriting and podcasting?
Okay, so just a little bit of a background on this. So, I started writing copy almost accidentally. So my story is quite simple. I started out when I was about 5 years old. Now, anyone that has read any psychological books or any psychology understands that a child's brain is formed unconsciously until they're 7. Then they start forming a conscious mind. At that point, my parents my dad between 5, 6, and 7 was paralyzed from the waist down.
Oh, wow.
And he couldn't walk. I think it was a herniated disc or something. Something was wrong with his back. And because he couldn't walk, he was in love with 3 shows on TV. And 2 of them are very British. One of them is global. The first one was a show called 15 to 1, which is basically like a trivia game of memory and knowing random things. The second was a show called Countdown, which was 100% about words and numbers. So it's numbers and words. Like you'd make up words from a 9-letter selection and you'd solve a math problem. And then the third show was he loved QVC. He loved watching the Home Shopping Channel. No idea why. He just loved doing that. So growing up, I have an older sister, and we used to compete to see who could actually watch TV when Dad wasn't watching. So I discovered my quick little route of doing it was sit next to Dad while he watched his shows. The moment he got up, I kind of paid my dues. I could go ahead and watch TV to whatever I wanted to see. Unconsciously, what I didn't realize was I was being influenced by math, words, and of course, sales for 2 years. And I did this for 2 years, 2 hours a day, 6 days a week. So my brain was just constantly taking this information in. And when I was about 12, my parents were pulled into a parent-teacher meeting and told, your son writes very slowly. He's very, very neat. He's always consistently trying to find the perfect way of writing stuff. He's going to fail at high school. Or middle school. You're going to really have to speak to him. And at this point, my dad could walk again, so it's all good and well. And I ended up going to his workplace, and I'd spend a couple of hours after school just writing stories. I'd just sit there and write stories about whatever was there, just to increase my speed of writing. After a while, we moved to another neighborhood, and my school commute went from 20 minutes to 2 hours. So it would take me 2 hours. Yeah, it'd take me 2 hours to get to and from school every day. So to kill the time and entertain myself, I used to have a notepad, which I still do to this day, where I would just sit down and read, or I would write. I'd make stuff up, and I'd give it to my dad to evaluate and write. It eventually got to the point where I stopped doing that because I pursued my creativity in the way of music and martial arts and other forms of creativity. And eventually it just got to the point where I was 18 and I went to a seminar, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. I really want to do this. I want to learn how to leverage the internet for my network marketing business. And the end of it all was that about 6 months after being at the first event, where I made some really good friends, some lifelong friends that I'm friends with to this day, one of the big takeaways was the fact that I got asked what I was good at. And at this point, the 6-month period, I'd written a single blog post and somehow got 10 people to visit it. I have no idea how 10 people visited my site, but they did. From that 10, 7 of them paid me money.
Oh, wow. I need to speak to you on that.
It was kind of like the first one, wow, okay. I didn't even it didn't even click in my mind. I was like, this is a thing you can do. So I went to, because I didn't know what copywriting was, I went to the seminar and I spoke to these 2 friends. And I was helping them as the green room person assistant that was getting food. And I was speaking to them, and they asked me, what am I good at? And I said, I'm terrible at traffic. I don't know much about selling. They're like, no, you're a good salesman, but here's the thing. Tell us something you've done. I was like, well, my blog post I wrote, I had 10 people see it, and 7 people paid me money. And they were like, 70%, that's insane. You have a room full of people that would kill for your skills.
Yeah.
You're a copywriter, go do that. Came back home, I spoke to my dad. Me and my dad were kind of like button heads at this point. And I told him I wanted to be a copywriter because he had a whole thing like, you should get a job or whatever. I told him I want to do business. So I said, I'm going to be a copywriter. And it was one of the few times my dad actually got what I meant, went upstairs, pulled out this file, and he gave it to me and goes, read the first 3 ads. So I'm reading the ads, and they seemed familiar. And I said, why do they seem familiar to me? He goes, because they're your stories. The stories you wrote for me as a kid, I used to take it to our copywriters, have them write a headline, clean up your grammar, and add a call to action. And that's basically how we used to get people to come in and buy stuff, was through your stories.
Oh, wow.
So,
that's amazing.
yeah, so after that, I started studying copywriting, and I heard Gary Halbert, the legend himself, say that every copywriter should do door-to-door sales for some period, just simply because it really shows you exactly what you need to do. So I did door-to-door sales, I did telesales, I did retail sales. I basically did every type of sales you could think of to really hone my skill while writing direct response. And yeah, now it's 10 years on from me actually going to that seminar. This year, actually, it's 10 years this year. And we've basically done over $400 million for my clients collectively in that time period. I can say has been done. There's more, but we've not documented it. So yeah, that's basically how I got my start.
That is really amazing. I mean, 7 years old, I think I was drawing stick figures.
I still do to this day. I mean, I used to be a good artist. I'm not anymore. But the other question you asked me was about podcasting. How I got into podcasting was simple. I used to do this thing where I'd interview people and I'd have 10 questions that I'd always ask. And one of my friends who's coming on my show quite soon is a man called Justin Brooke. Justin is amazing. I've known him since 2009. Like he's a running buddy. He's basically family to me. He said to me, he came on my show, and he was so bored out of his mind, I could hear it. The interview ended in 30 minutes. And I was like, man, this is so weird. What's going on? So I left the interview thing for a really long time. And then podcasting came out, and I thought, I was speaking to a friend, and he said to me, hey, Adil, I have a question for you. When we speak, we have incredible conversations. Like, you let your guard down. You're not trying to be this marketing guy. You're just you. And we get to explore the craziness of your brain. Because I do cuss a lot, but I refrain from doing so on certain shows. But on my show, we do always. And he said, you cuss, you speak, you're yourself. You're this crazy, weird human being that, because I as you know, Cheryl, I mess around with like aerospace dynamics and engines, and I break things and put them back together as you do yourself.
Yes.
And I love that stuff because we had a whole discussion on this. But I talked about this stuff with him. He goes, no one knows this about you. Why does no one know this about you? I was like, I don't know. He's like, do a podcast about that. So inspired by that and watching the Joe Rogan Experience, I found that my style of podcasting was just speaking to people very candidly. Like, I wanted, like, the initial premise of my show was the reason why it's called Unplugged is because I'm not hosting it for anyone else but myself and the guests I get on. The whole thing was, I want to show your marketplace, your version of Unplugged. I want them to see the real you outside of what you promote, so people can relate to you, because it's a strength of authenticity.
Yes,
and
definitely. I agree.
Yeah. I started that at the end of 2013, and now 2018, we're in the 4th season, going strong.
Very nice.
And it's incredible. So that's the reason why I started my show.
And you're in the UK right now. And
Yeah.
you were born in India, correct?
No, Tanzania. I was born in Tanzania.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm African.
Oh my goodness, I would have never guessed
Indian.
that.
No,
Yeah,
mostly Indian, Arab, Tanzanian, and Sicilian, which is a fun thing.
And when were you, how old were you when you moved to the UK?
4. It's 4 years old.
Okay.
It's 4 years old when I moved.
So that's where the British accent comes from.
The transatlantic British accent, yes, because Brits think I'm American, Americans think I'm Brit. It's hilarious to me.
They think you're American? I don't understand
so
that.
badly.
That would be like...
It's the hard R's, because I have very hard R's in my sentencing, and they're like, you sound American. And also because I use a lot of American analogies, they're like, wait, hold on, what?
Well, honestly, going to London, you are probably one of the most understandable people I spoke to. I mean, a lot of people there, I was just like, what? what? So
You did that once or twice with me, and I was like, wait, no, I'm mispronouncing a word here. I should really break it down. You're like, oh, that's what you meant.
yeah, it was a little different. That and the driving on the other side of the road, I still got confused about every time I got in the car. I was just like, okay, yeah, this is really happening. They're really coming at me the other way. So, and my cab driver was like, no, we drive the right way. You guys drive on the wrong side. So I'm like, okay. Whatever.
I just blame Hamilton. That's my whole reason for it. I blame Hamilton for this.
Yeah, I even actually went to the wrong side to talk to the cab driver to get the cab. And I was like, all right, we're not in New York anymore. We got to go to the other side. So, but, okay. So me and you originally met on, Facebook page, Coffee with Dan or Espresso with Dan. I think I put something on there. It's like, for anybody that doesn't know what it is, Espresso with Dan is where entrepreneurs and business owners and business people, we all network and we help each other. And
that's the paid community. That's the paid community. Coffee with Dan is the same thing, but a free community. I recommend it to anyone that's there. As long as you're cool. You have to be cool to get in.
Yeah, there's no hating going on, and everybody's helps each other, and it's. So I put something on probably Coffee with Dan. I said I was looking for somebody I want to create my own podcast, and someone recommended you. So that's how I met you. And I flew to London, 10 hours, and you're like, I have only a couple hours that I can meet you. So on almost no sleep, I said, well, okay, I need coffee. Went and got coffee, and I was so excited to be in London for the first time that I didn't care. But let me tell you, I slept for like a day and a half after that.
That's incredible. But was it that? I think it was that. But we ended up speaking real quick, and I think you said that you were flying to London because you were doing some work in a photo shoot over here for. I
did. I actually dressed up like Elsa, and
that was amazing.
And I shot by the Tower Bridge, and walking over to the Tower Bridge, the photographer was so sweet. He's like, all right, because there was nothing but a bunch of little 3 and 4 year olds. And the minute they saw Elsa, their mouths just dropped. So I'm like, I know there's a huge market here. There's nobody's doing this. So I was like, all right, I'm coming back. So yeah, March 9th and 10th, we're launching a franchise, Kids Party Characters London. So I'm super excited. Yeah.
It's cool.
So, yeah, some beautiful pictures. Elsa by the London Bridge. So.
You should totally use that as I can totally angle that like Elsa is coming.
The kids believe they're real. You know, they believe all these characters are real till they're 8, and so it's just that's why I want to share this business with the world. Is just bring as much joy as many kids as I can, and it's a really, if I could do it for free, I would, but you know. Still got to pay my bills, but
yeah, I know how you feel on that one. It's one of those fun little things. Yeah.
So
cool.
So what else? I mean, I don't really have any more questions for you.
This is brilliant. No kidding.
So, tell everybody your podcast, Adil Amarsi. I said that right?
Almost. AdilAmarsi, yeah. It's for my American friends, think of Advil and just take with V.
Okay.
You got my name like down pat that way.
So Adil Amarsi, but Unplugged. That's on I definitely, I have to subscribe to it. So I'm going to do that as soon as we get off here. And
yeah, I mean, it'll be really cool to actually have you on as a subscriber for sure. It's just something that's going to be quite a lot of fun to do. And I think you're actually going to be on my show quite soon, which is interesting.
And tell everybody about your copy as well, like before, like how they can find that.
Well, to be fair, I actually, hold on 1 second. Can we hit pause for a second? Sorry about that, guys. My door was starting to ring, like my phone was ringing, and that meant my door was about to my doorbell was about to go off. So I was like, yeah, I really should go get that. So I don't have a reason to delay you any further. So yeah, welcome back to the show, I guess.
Yes, welcome back. So I wanted to ask you. So I'm a recent new copywriter. I learned through some trainings from Ben Settle and infotainment and memes from another friend of mine. And Dan Meredith also taught me how to make memes. But I want to ask you about copywriting. being a beginner and I want to really relay my message across, what is your suggestion on how I should like start these copywriting, and how a whole call to action and all that kind of stuff? What
Okay.
is your advice on that?
Okay, so if I remember correctly, most of the people that will be listening to this would be like stay-at-home moms that are really looking as a way to increase their income and basically create like a level of freedom for themselves, right?
Correct.
And salespeople. I mean, everyone loves these kind of things because they're actually a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So something that I'd love to impart with you guys is what took me a very long time to figure out, which is how to actually write advertising that sold. And I say a long time because I was in like quote unquote apprenticeship unconsciously. And then like between 18, 19, and 20, I was really like cutting my teeth. One of the best things I understood during my time in apprenticeship and really understanding this stuff is, one, pick up a really, really good book on copywriting. One of the best ones I can always recommend is My Life in Advertising and Scientific Advertising by John. It's not John Caples. God, what's his name? He's really well known. I'm actually drawing a blank right now. I'll pick up his name in a minute, but he's an excellent, scientific advertising. I think that is Claude Hopkins. There we go. Brilliant. Just remembered his name. So Claude Hopkins would be a brilliant place to start because Claude actually, even though what he wrote was in the early 1900s, like I think 1900 to 1920 is kind of when the era the book was actually written in. It's a really short book, really quick to get through, but what's sold in, say, 1000 BC, like the same principles of selling in 1000 BC are still the same principles to sell today. The medium's just changed, and the speed of the message of how quickly it gets there has changed. Nothing else has. I mean, we're still reason-based, emotional-based buyers and creatures. So if you can give me a emotional reason to get interested and a logical reason to buy, then I'll give you my money.
Yeah.
So,
I was also reading too, like nobody likes the pushy salesman, but if you play on people's emotions and get their heart involved in it, and they're more likely just to give you their money and they don't feel like you're selling them that way.
Yeah. And I'd say, just to kind of like really clean that up a little bit, would be in the sense of playing on people's emotions can be seen negatively, but if you use it in a way that's influential, this is kind of the key dichotomy between the two. You want to know if your product is truly helping people and you're there to help people, like Cheryl is, like I am, like all our friends are. What we tend to do is we do play on emotion, but we play on the emotions of either showing you exactly where you are right now and giving you a real honest look at it, or you follow, which is what a lot of my friends do, and the way that I do it is I show you the land of pleasure that you really want to get to and give you a roadmap to get there. We both give you roadmaps. It's just which emotions we go by. And no one really likes to be sold to, but everyone loves to buy. So it's mastering that art of telling a story that is educational, entertaining, and asking for the sale. And that's the key part that I would actually always impart. Always ask for a sale. Always get your person to take an action. The reason basically being is if you don't, they'll say, I'll think about it. And they never will, because the next shiny object will come their way and they'll forget about what you just said. So getting them to commit to something right away, whether it's getting their name, their email address, their contact details, them paying you, them ordering something for just $1, whatever it is, it means they've taken positive action towards getting better in their life, and you reward every positive step. And that's essentially one of the big things that you want to play on. So that's something I'd give as an immediate take is, first of all, read Scientific Advertising. And the second is, what for the educational purposes of understanding story, watch really good mass loved shows like Game of Thrones, or anything that
I have not watched that. I need to start watching that.
Or anything the Marvel Universe has created, or Lord of the Rings, or Harry Potter, or anything that Disney creates. Look at how they emotionally have you invest. By having you emotionally invest in things, i.e. you grow accustomed to a certain character, like Elsa is a perfect example. She's outcasted, and a lot of kids feel like they are outcasted.
Yes.
Or they're different, or they wish to be different. So that becomes either their superhero or the person they want to be alike to. So that becomes their role model, the person they relate to. So by doing so, it gets them hooked. And you can do the same thing to adults. I mean, I'll give you an example. Deadpool, the movie Deadpool came out 2016, 2 years ago now. That movie was in production hell for the good part of 9 years.
Oh, wow. I didn't know
And
that.
and I know this because when the X-Men Origins Wolverine movie came out, where Ryan Reynolds actually played Wade Wilson, aka Deadpool, I was in love because that was one of my favorite comic book characters. Yes, I'm a comic book nerd. No surprise there. But he basically kind of like took this character and made him real. I was like, wow, if he picked up two katanas and yelled and went crazy tomorrow and said, "I'm actually Deadpool," everyone would be like, "Actually, yes, you really are. You just don't have the superpowers." That's basically how well he played that character.
That's amazing.
So,
Yeah, I did a lot of those face paintings when that movie came
yeah.
out. All the boys wanted to be Deadpool, so.
Yeah, because he's kind of the cool Merc with a mouth that's quite funny and just a gunslinger. But what it was is for 9 years, the fan base, including me, were trying to get the studios to make this movie, and they didn't. And what really changed their mind was they accidentally leaked test footage that they created for this movie for fans to see their response. That thing hit, I think, 5 million views in the first 3 hours that it was out, and then just hit so many more millions of views, like over a 24-hour period. And studios like, yes, okay, we will go do this.
Yeah, they have to.
Right. So because people related with the foul mouth, humorous, toilet humor, gunslinger type hero that is Deadpool, that also breaks the fourth wall and speaks to his character because he's very sarcastic, a very witty character, and people relate to that or want to be like that. What they did was when they did Open Night, that movie sold out like crazy. Just to give you an idea of movie budgets, superhero movie budgets on standard now receive about $100 million to be made. That's their budget to start with. Deadpool had to raise all their money, including having the producers put their own money in as well, and the directors put their money in, which came to $65 million, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So they weren't given much of a marketing budget either. They weren't given much of promotion either. Ryan Reynolds actually had to do the entire promotion on his own by going to different shows, doing all the humor on YouTube, leveraging online the way he did. That movie, by the time it was out of box office and completely done, had grossed $720 million. It was the highest rated and most profitable Marvel movie to date, and highest rated R-rated movie that's ever come out.
Well, that's crazy because I don't really get any bookings for Deadpool anymore. You would think with that kind of rating set that would still be going on. I mean,
it would and it wouldn't, because also Deadpool is not kid friendly.
That's true.
Yeah, that you'd get more stuff at teenagers doing Deadpool stuff, whereas Spider-Man Homecoming, for instance, you get a lot of Spider-Man because Spider-Man's such a loved character.
Yeah.
From get-go. But what I'm saying is when you study these kind of things, look at how they emotionally hook you in. If you've got a favorite book, stop, reread it, and actually say, okay, what emotions am I feeling here? Do I feel fear? Do I feel happiness? Do I feel sadness? Do I feel anxiety? And see how those books edge you ever so closely to that feeling, and then encapsulate the passage that makes you feel like that and transform it into your marketing.
Yeah, I definitely think as many Elsa parties that I've done, people tell me that I have become Elsa. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's you get to a point too where you know like all the words to the songs, you know everything, that's every single scene, everything. The kids know too because they're gonna test you. They've seen the movie. Even the dads will start singing "Let It Go" when I do "Let It Go" for Elsa, which is pretty funny. But the dads know all the words too, you know. So I mean, that is being the most popular character right now, other than you know, Moana for the girls. But it's definitely, I would have to say, it's because of the emotionally, you know, charged that feeling that all the kids and everybody get from that movie. So, you know, and it's empowering for the kids too, as well, because she turns around and, you know, she uses everything for the greater good. But, you know, I can definitely see where building off of people's feelings and emotions is where copywriting comes from.
Yeah,
basically.
It's what we do. Yeah, it's what we do. It's basically one of the most powerful triggers and leveraging tools you can actually have to really build out a business quite quickly and take your idea to market and validate it quite quickly.
Yeah, and it's good, you know, I mean, taking stories that you've been through or other people have been through and using that tool for your copywriting, you know, all these things, and create a story where people are emotionally hooked, and then once they're emotionally hooked, and then they don't really feel like they're being sold. And that's what I think the key is behind copywriting, is when people feel like you are truly adding value to their lives and you're really helping them along the way, they don't feel sold. And that's what the genius behind copywriting is you want people to give you money and not feel like they're being sold. So I think that's the bottom line.
Yeah, it's like a good investment for you, really. And that also comes into delivery of what the product is as well. Cool.
So,
yeah, one of my biggest tips I can ever give to anyone is understand how to remove fear. If you can remove fear from people reading your content, meaning like what will happen next. I mean, you can use fear as a whole, building tool to get them into the point of when they take action, but remove fear of what happens next. As in, what happens if I click this button? By removing the fear of those things, you actually increase your sales amount as well, with the amount people pay you.
Yes, take away their pain and bring them to pleasure, basically.
Exactly. Yep.
So
it's always a key thing.
All right. So that's about it, really. I mean, I cannot wait to come back to London to see you and hang out, because,
yeah, sure.
We are actually going to a London franchise show out there March 9th and 10th. And I'm bringing an actor with me who's going to be dressing up with me. So we're going to be going around London. If you see Elsa and Anna running around, it's just me again.
I will probably be like, hey, Cheryl, what up?
Walk past me. If we do that stuff in New York, people will be like, oh, whatever. But, hopefully in London, and we'll have a better response.
They probably will. Someone will probably ask, is there a Comic-Con going on right now? In all fairness, you would be very close to the Comic-Con, because I think Comic-Con is late March.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Well, we will be in Chicago late March, so if it was the other way around, it would be perfect, but,
Yeah.
So
sure. Thank you so much for having me as a guest on the show.
You're welcome. I'm so honored to have you on the show, and glad to talk to you again, and can't wait to see you in March. And Definitely. Tell everybody where you can see you. What's your Facebook page? Oh, my Facebook page is just my name, says Adil Amarsi. I think I've capped out my friends list, and my fan page sucks. So the best place to actually meet me is go to my blog, which is AdilAmarsi.com. And you can subscribe to my podcast on there. You can get on my mailing list where we, essentially I've just got to the point where I just talk authentically about how I feel. And we have so much more fun in conversation. And I will give this warning though. It's not a kids-friendly show what I produce, but it is humorous, and there is a lot of great value that comes out of it. So if you're in business, or if you're actually even thinking about that kind of thing, definitely hop on and send me an email, because I love talking to people. Cheryl knows this far too well. Yes. So yeah, definitely. And I'll talk to you soon. And I'm so happy that we got to talk, and I take care there, my friend. Thanks for having me, guys. See you on the next episode. See you on the next episode of Kids Party Characters Podcast. Bye. Bye.